Hey, just a few more things that we still need to take care of. Another one that we wanted to make sure that we have done is whenever we're adding to the cart me function, and then also constructing the cart itself that we're adding items into. And this is we're going to have the same functionality or similar functionality to what we had earlier. So right now we have cart me, and whenever it gets clicked, we track the mouse event. So we want to actually pick up the target that initiated the event. So when we click it, we see that we get the element that triggered it. So if we had more than one, and maybe you want to buy a bear or something like that. So if we had more than one, it's going to trigger that element. So that gives us the ability to pick up the element and get content from that element, and then deposit that information into our main cart. So that's what we're going to do right now is we're going to add it into the cart from the cart object. So we've got cart here, and we need to create a function within the cart itself in order to add that item as well as output it and a bunch of other things as well. So let's create this, and we're going to create a list. So this is going to be basically where we're going to hold all the information contained within this cart. We're going to deposit all that information that the user is selecting, and it's going to be all held within my list, which is sitting into the cart object, which gets constructed every time we do new cart. And in this case, we're already using cart. So we needed to have another function here within the cart itself in order to add it into the cart. And we already saw that we had this before where we've got adder, and we're gonna have a method for this where we're getting the item and then the cost of that item, and we're adding it into the list. And the same as what we saw earlier where we bring it to the lowercase, and we're gonna use the nice thing about objects where we can take the item and to lowercase. And of course, this only really works if you have only one word items. If they have more than one word, then you've got to do a little bit more cleanup of that. But for the purposes of the demonstration, all of them are going to just be one word. So those are going to be the object names, and then we're going to have values associated with it. And that's where we're able to get that and make it unique. So just as we did before, where we had the my list, and we were using the square brackets and checking to see if it exists, and if it doesn't exist, then we know we need to create it, and if it does exist, then we already know that we have a quantity in this object, and we can just update the quantity by updating the value there, so adding to that quantity. And because this is going to be the list that's contained within the cart, and this is where the object's going to sit, we don't have to relist or anything like that. We're going to create functions in order to do the listing because we want all of this contained within the one object. And of course, this is object-oriented programming, so that's where we want to contain everything within the same place. So if we don't have this particular element, we want to list that out. And the way that we're going to list it out is we'll equal it to an object. And then we need to just simply construct that object. So each one of them is going to have a name, and this is going to be getting that item information that's being passed in. Also, there's going to be a price for it. So this is whatever the cost is of that item. And quantity by default, we're setting that to 1. And then you can also add in things like subtotal if you want. So we had that last time as well, so let's do subtotal. And so this is going to be a method within here, where what we're going to do is we're going to take and return back whatever this price is and multiply it by this quantity. And so these values are going to be actually changing. So just as we saw before with our other shopping cart, which wasn't object-oriented programming, but was based on objects, that we're able to return back subtotals. And before we continue, we can actually clean this up where we can remove out that cart because we don't necessarily need that, as we can utilize the object directly as we're adding in the item. So we've got all of these values here. And instead of cart me, let's add an anonymous function here. So we don't have to pass in that object. And we can add in cart adder using that one that we just created. And we've already got the temp name as well as the temp value at this point. And we also need to have a way to list out from the cart. So we'll create, and we can just call this one cart lister. And then going back into our cart object, let's add in that method where we've got one lister, and this is going to be equal to a function, and we'll output whatever is contained within my list. So equal sign. So refresh and try that. So now whenever we click it, we can see that we can list out the contents of the cart. We've got 2 in there. Let's add in a test item here. So if I add that one, we can see that now we've got within there, we've got 3 test items. We've got 2 milks. We can keep clicking the milks and list it out again. So everything is adding in properly, just as we saw before, where we've got the quantity, we've got the price, we can calculate subtotals if we want, we can get the test one as well. So all of these objects are behaving the same way. So there's a few final steps in order to complete our project where we need to output the information visibly for the user. So that's some additional methods that we're going to add into the cart. And then we'll also add in a button so the user can simply list that out whenever they want to. So all of that is still yet to come in the upcoming lesson. So go ahead and add in the ability to add to your cart object.